Hello everyone, this is a question back with my reading log for the month of September. As you can tell here, a decent amount of reads. I read through a giant stack of Natsumi Ono works. I finally read through the first 7 hardcovers of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and then some volume 1s and a bunch of kind of just random volumes that I ended up deciding to check out this month. A lot of really good stuff, a lot of disappointing stuff, and a lot of stuff that I'll be unhauling. So let's get right into the video. Okay, so I'm going to start off with all the #1 volume 1s that I read through in the month of September. So starting off, we have Associate Professor Akira Takasugi's Conjecture. That is a mouthful of volume 1. This is a new series, and it basically follows our lead character, who is a college student who has this power where he can detect lies. So because of this, he kind of avoids talking to people. He's kind of stays to himself, but he ends up getting kind of taken on as this professor of supernatural stories. He gets taken on as his assistant, and his ability to detect lies, obviously is a help to finding out if people are telling the truth when they claim to have had supernatural experiences. So pretty interesting first volume, definitely a series that I will continue reading. I did really enjoy it. It hooked me, so recommended on this first volume. Next up, we have a newer Yuri series, and that is My Cute Little Kitten Volume 1. This one is it is pretty explicit, especially in the back half, so I'm only going to kind of really show a few of the early pages, but it follows these 2 roommates who are just kind of friend type roommates who both have secret crushes on each other, and they end up getting this kitten as a pet, and it kind of makes them decide that they really want to stay together and they want to live together in a new place. So it's nothing special. It's kind of a by the books Yuri series. Nothing that really grabbed me too much other than, it having a cat in it. But yeah, so I don't know. If this is a shorter series, I might pick up the other volumes just to see how it ends. But this is, nothing special, nothing that you need to run out and grab. Next up, we have a highly talked about new series, and that is Anno Banashi Volume 1. This is a new Shonen Jump series, and it basically follows this girl who her father was this legendary rakugo, which is like this form of Japanese storytelling, kind of like a one-person, almost like a stand-up comedian would, but more like dramatic action kind of stories where one person is doing the voices, just a kind of a classic form of storytelling in Japan. And obviously in this world it's not quite as popular, but she wants to take on what her father was doing and become like a legendary rakugo person. And so this first volume, I know people really love this. I thought it was okay. It didn't really grab me too much. It's got the March Comes In Like a Lion thing where there's tons of word bubbles on every page. And I mean, at least in this one, I mean, it's about storytelling. So there is a lot of word bubbles, where there's a lot of story stuff going on where she's performing, someone else is performing. But yeah, it was a fine first volume. I'm not going to continue reading it now, but depending on how it, what happens in the future, when it's completed, I might end up checking it out. But it was a fine first volume. Okay, so next up we have Secrets of the Silent Witch Volume 1. This follows our lead character here, who is this witch who, as far as we know in this world, is the only witch that can do spells silently. She doesn't have to recite her spells like all the other witches in this world. And we find out that the whole reason that she does that is because she is very shy. So she's not doing that because she has some secret talent or something. She just taught herself from a young age to recite spells like that because she is deathly afraid of speaking in public. So she learned how to say all her spells quietly, so that way she doesn't have to talk. And so that's kind of the first half, is just kind of introducing us to the characters. And then the second half of the story, which I think is where the whole rest of the series is going to go, is that she kind of gets a job where she has to become a student at an academy and secretly protect this boy at the school. So it turns into almost like an academy story where she's making friends at the school. That's kind of where the second half goes, and I assume that's where the rest of the series is going to go. I normally really enjoy stories. Witches are interesting. Witch Hat Atelier, that's one that's really good. So anything with witches I usually enjoy. This one though, it was pretty forgettable. It wasn't anything, you know, it was kind of just your standard average volume 1, nothing really too special. So this is another one. Don't think I'm going to continue with it, but I'll definitely hold on to the first volume. Next up, we have another Yuri series, and that is I Don't Know Which Is Love. This has been described as a Yuri harem manga. I haven't read any standard harem mangas like the typical. It's usually one boy, teenage boy, who has a bunch of girls that that all are having crushes, all want to get with him. And it's kind of him trying to fight them all off, or him being in love, trying to pick which one he wants to be with. So haven't read anything in that genre, but that's how this was described, as kind of a Yuri version of that. And that is basically what this is. It's about this girl who, she goes to college, and her whole dream when she goes to college is that she wants to finally get to have a girlfriend and get to kiss a girl. And pretty much within the first day of school, she has like 5 different choices of women who all are madly, you know, attracted to her and wanting to be with her. So she's kind of having to decide in this first volume which one that she's most interested in, because she's crushing on all of them. And it was just a cute first volume. It's definitely, like I said, I haven't read anything in that genre, so I'm sure there's a lot of like kind of putting tropes in reverse, like that I don't catch. But I really enjoyed this first volume. It's really cute. Some of the characters are better than others, but it's kind of cool how like each one of the other women all like her because of one specific part of her personality that's different than the others. But yeah, just a cute first volume. I'll definitely be continuing this one. Next up, we have another very anticipated new release, and that is the Summerhakaru Died. Great bright cover here, and it follows a set of 2 best friends who one of the boys goes up in a mountain and is missing for 6 months, and when he comes back, he is no longer he looks and acts kind of like he's still the same boy, but the best friend can obviously tell that it is not the same person that went up into the mountain, and that it's some sort of creature, monster, we don't know, demon that has taken over the boy's body and is pretending to be him. So artwork is really great in this. I really like the artwork. The 2 leads are very interesting. The story has got its hooks in me. I'm definitely interested to see where this is going. I won't read any more until the series is completed, but this was a really good first volume. Definitely hooked me. Like the kind of dark stuff that goes on in this. But yeah, so that was the Summerhakaru Died. And the final volume 1 that I read through this month was a series, Toge Oni Primal Gods in Ancient Times. This is one that I hadn't heard anything about. I just kind of blind bought it based on the description and the cover here. And this was probably my least favorite volume 1 that I read through this month. And even then, it wasn't bad or anything. It's just not really for me, and I won't be continuing. But the artwork is really nice. As you can see here, some very detailed kind of backgrounds, some really great artwork. It follows this lead girl here who is an orphan who is picked in her village that she's going to be sacrificed next. They do kind of like a yearly sacrifice. And right before she's accepted it, but right before she's going to be sacrificed, she ends up running into this priest, and they kind of rescue her. She goes with the priest and this other person, and now they're going to kind of, it seems like the rest of the series is going to kind of be a road trip series where they're traveling around, dealing with demons, going to temples, things of that nature. So like I said, not bad, nothing that I hated or anything like that, just definitely not one I'm going to continue with. So that was all of the volume 1s. Okay, so next up we have some short story collections, newer ones that I read through. So first off, we have Offshore Lightning by Saito Nizuna. This is a drawn and quarterly release, and this one's a little weird because this got solicited and was supposed to be available, I think, summer of 2022. And within like a month or two after it being up for solicits, it was already delayed like a full year. Like normally, you know, they'll delay something for a month and then it'll keep getting pushed back. This, like right from the start, was delayed a full year. So that was kind of weird. So obviously something licensing or something in the production aspect of it caused it to get delayed by that much. But they knew about it pretty early on. But yeah, did finally come out. Really great to have, really great cover here. I really like the colors. One of my favorite things about Drawn and Quarterly and kind of these classic collections is when they have some really good supplemental material. And this one here has a nice kind of article telling about the creator and how she got started. She actually didn't start drawing comics until she was 40 years old, which is pretty interesting. We've got some interview questions with her. And so the short story collection, kind of, I would say, probably more slice of life. The older stories, I really enjoyed probably the most. And then kind of the back half of the book, she went on quite a long hiatus. And on the back half of the book is kind of her more recent stuff. So just a really good short story collection, nothing mind-blowing. This isn't like one of my favorite short story collections, but glad to have more kind of classic material and material from creators that we haven't got anything in English before. So glad to finally have this. Okay, next up we have a Glacier Bay short story collection, and this is Mothers. This is all of the short stories in here basically revolve around mothers, children, and loss. That's kind of the focus of these short stories. But one of the cool things about this one, I mean, there is some slice of life stories, but a lot of the stories in here get kind of surreal. This short story collection very much reminded me of Moto Hagayo. It reminded me a lot of her short story collections, and I love this one. This was probably my favorite Glacier Bay release that I've ever read. All the short stories were interesting. I really enjoyed kind of where they went. They hooked me quickly. Really great artwork. All different types of stories. I mean, they are, like I said, all kind of focused on mothers and children and kind of the love between them and also loss. But just a fantastic short story collection. If you're looking to try out Glacier Bay and you haven't picked anything up from them before, I highly recommend Mothers. This is just a solid release. If you're a big Moto Hagayo fan, definitely check this one also. And it's pretty thick. It's a pretty solid size release. Great art. Can't recommend this one enough. Okay, and lastly, we have a Yuri short story collection, and that is I Don't Need a Happy Ending, a collection of short stories. This one is by the same creator of Assorted Entanglements, a new anthology series that's been coming out. And this one here, parental advisory, this one does have some explicit stuff in it. As far as the story goes, it's kind of standard Yuri stuff. Two characters meet, they kind of don't hit it off, and then they end up, you know, getting attracted to each other and hooking up. There's just kind of a lot of kind of standard Yuri tropes in this series. But one thing I did enjoy, I do like in these kind of short story collections, especially for this one, which looks like it's more older stories from this creator's history. And I do like when they kind of, after every one of these short stories, there's like a little paragraph where they kind of say their feelings about it, like, oh man, I was really embarrassed to reread this story, or this is one of my favorites, or you could see I'm just learning and when making this short story. So I do really enjoy that. I like getting a look into creators' kind of thought process. So this one was fine. I think I gave it like 3 stars on Goodreads. It's an okay short story collection, but it's pretty by the books kind of Yuri short stories. Okay, so next up I read through 2 different Tadao Suge releases. And so starting off we have Slum Wolf. So for anybody who doesn't know this creator, they are a famous alternative Gekiga manga creator from the 60s and 70s. It's probably when they were the most making the most of their work. And this is kind of a short story collection. All these stories are from the late 60s, early 70s. And like I mentioned before, I really like these releases where they have some supplemental material. So for even if you don't know anything about the creator, as you can see here, We have an article basically about the creator. Some of his stories were created or brought into, made into a live action movie. So it talks about a little bit about the history of that. But most of these stories, like it says, slums, it's basically post-war Japan, and a lot of, most of his stories, a lot of violence, a lot of men being drunk and depressed and trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives, and, you know, just getting into fights, and just kind of the seediness of kind of slum life in post-war Japan. That's kind of what most of these stories are about. So this is Slum Wolf. I think there's another publisher who published this book, but this one here is listed as New York Review of Comics. I'm pretty sure it was also released by like Fantagraphics or Drawn and Quarterly, but my volume says New York Review of Comics for my release. So there is Slum Wolf. And next from Suge, I also read through Tale of the Beast, and this is I didn't realize how hard to find this volume is. This I bought maybe a year ago. It is from Black Hook Press, and I had bought this straight off a Japanese website from a bookstore there that was selling these English copies. Black Hook Press is no longer around. This book was just published, I think, in like 2018, but that publisher is already defunct, so they're not around anymore. But this is a really nice release. This series, or this story, was actually never completed. The publisher that he had created this story for back in the 80s went out of business, so he never actually finished this story. So it does end just kind of abruptly, and I guess it was supposed to go for maybe another 100 pages or something like that, it says at the end. But really nice artwork. We got blue ink here, got a nice dust jacket. Just a really nice release. It's a little different than his other stories. It is very much post-war Japan, kind of bad stuff happening, but in this one, our main character is a serial killer, and you're kind of following him along as seeing what he does. So this one was pretty interesting. I really enjoyed this one. I enjoyed this one probably more than the stuff in Slum Wolf. But yeah, hard to find. I just randomly tried to look up this on the internet, and I can't find a single I couldn't find a single copy of this for sale anywhere, like on eBay, anything. So I even went to the store where I bought this from in Japan. I tried to search for them. I couldn't find them anymore. So I don't know what's going on with this release, but yeah. So if you can find this to read online, definitely check it out. Like I said, even though it wasn't completed, the publisher went out of business and he never finished the story. It's still worth a read. Next up, we have a one-shot, and this is a Fanfare Ponetmon release. That is one of the rare manga ones that's not Jiro Taniguchi, and that is I Wish I Could Say Thank You by Yukari Takanami. And this one follows a woman whose mother, who has been very hard to please, very tough, very big presence of a mother. Her mother ends up getting cancer, and so she kind of has to learn how to relate to her in a different way, where her mother is this lady who's been so big personality and so hard to please her whole life, is now having to ask others for help because she has cancer and needs to be taken care of. So autobiographical story, kind of the artwork here kind of looks like a lot of autobiographical manga that I've read, but I found the story very interesting. The characters were interesting. You know, it's definitely heartwarming. It reminds you to, you know, to definitely reach out to the people that you care about when you can in your life. So yeah, just a really good autobiographical manga. Glad that we got this in English. I don't think we've gotten anything else by this creator in English, but just a really nice release here by Fanfare Ponetmon. Okay, so next is the big thing I read through this month. If you've watched any of my videos before, you know that I've steadily been buying the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure hardcovers, and I have never actually even read a page of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and I actually didn't know anything very much about the story either, which this is a lesson for any manga collectors, any readers who buy manga. Always at least read the first volume before you go on a crazy... I have right now all of the hardcovers of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I have the Rohan at the Louvre hardcovers, and I didn't care for this. Not really much at all. I definitely can see why people appreciate it. The artwork is fantastic. Other than the first hardcover, I did not care for any of this series really at all. This was pretty, it was pretty quick for me to know that this was not going to be a series for me. I think I thought this was going to be more adventure story heavy. But it's basically just every one of these hardcovers is like 300 pages of 1 or 2 fights where 2 people are monologuing to each other and fighting. So I've mentioned before, I'm not big into battle manga. I'm not big into fighting manga. And I read through the first 7 of these JoJo Bizarre Adventure hardcovers. So we got part 1 of Phantom Blood. So I read through 1, 2, and 3 of part 1. So that's all of part 1. And then I read through all of part 2, which is Battle Tendency. And yeah, I was really having to force myself to finish through some of these. Like I said, the artwork is amazing in these. It's definitely beautiful artwork. I can see why people enjoy this series, especially if you're a big fan of action. It's got some nice color pages. If you're a big fan of action and kind of fighting stories are up your alley, you are gonna love this series. But that is not my type of manga, and I did not, like I said, I really should have, this is a very big lesson, is that I really should have at least read the first volume or the first hardcover and seen kind of how I felt about it. Although, to be fair, the first volume of this, the first hardcover, was actually the volume that I liked the most, and that was mainly just because it was more setup. So this first hardcover here is basically introducing you to the world, and it's this kid kind of going to school, and the character that ends up being the villain of the story gets adopted by his family, and so he kind of has to deal with them as they're kind of like rivals. But it's just a lot of like hijinks and a lot of going to school and stuff of that nature in this first hardcover. So the first hardcover, I was like, okay, I can see where this is going. But then every volume after was basically just a fight or two dragged on for 300 pages with 2 characters monologuing the whole time back and forth. So it reminded me of like drawn out Dragon Ball Z episodes that I used to watch. It was a lot of that, just talking over fighting. So like I said, wonderful artwork, but I'm definitely going to be unhauling this series, and this was definitely a good learning thing for me of making sure I at least read a volume or 2 to see if I'm really going to enjoy a story, or maybe getting some more knowledge about the series. The way people describe this series, I did not, like I said, I didn't think it was a straight up battle manga, and that's all these. I flipped through some other volumes to see if maybe it changes down the line, and it was like, I flipped through pages and it's hundreds of pages of fights in all the future hardcovers too. So not for me. I will definitely be selling this series off, but that'll clear up almost 2 whole shelves of my bookshelves was JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. So I will have a lot of free space after getting rid of this series. Okay, so next up we got just some kind of random reads that I read through this month. I read through Blue Spring by Teo Matsumoto. This is probably one of his lesser known works. It is a short story collection about delinquents, and I know people have wondered why this hasn't been reprinted by Viz. After reading this, I can tell why it hasn't been reprinted. It's very mediocre stories. There's, I thought it was just going to be, oh, it's just below average Matsumoto, but this is bad Matsumoto. The stories there's not a single short story in here that I found even remotely interesting. Most of the stories are pretty nonsense. I really enjoy Matsumoto's work, and this was, definitely an easy skip, and I can see, other than just to be a completionist, why they haven't reprinted this one shot, or short story collection. So that was Blue Spring. Next up, I read through What's Michael Fat Cat Collection Volume 2. I'd actually forgot that I had never read this one. I had read the Volume 1 of the Fat Cat Collection at least a year or 2 ago, and then they reviewed the volume 1 of this on Manga Splaining podcast, and that reminded me that I never actually read volume 2, and so I went ahead and did that. And it's more What's Michael stories. I think I enjoyed the first volume a little bit more, but it's still fine. It's just, you know, cute cat stories. There's no real continuity in this series. The creator basically just uses Michael as a way to tell stories. So some stories he'll have kids, some stories he will be an office worker, a yakuza. You know, Michael just gets put in all these different situations. The artwork is really nice. This creator really knows how to draw cats. You know, it's funny, cute. Nothing gonna blow you away. But if you enjoy cats, this is a great kind of classic manga series to check out. And it's all collected in these 2 Fat Cat collections from Dark Horse. It's a pretty thick series. I didn't realize when I read this that, so I opened this up, and I've had a couple issues with Dark Horse releases recently. There was like 20 pages at the bottom that were just all connected together that I literally had to tear to get apart. So that was kind of weird. This has been on my shelf for a few years. But yeah, just a really nice release. Glad that we get stuff like this released in English. But yeah, if you're a fan of cat comics, definitely check out What's Michael. Okay, so lastly, I have a big chunk here of Natsumi Ono works that I read through this month. And I wasn't planning on reading through a bunch of Ono's work, but on Tony Manga, on her Goodread, she had posted that she read Tesoro, and that is a old short story collection by Natsumi Ono. And so I was like, oh yeah, I don't think I ever read that one. So I read that, and then I got in a kick of reading through every other Ono work that I hadn't read yet. So starting off, we have this short story collection by Natsumi Ono. And one thing, if you know about Ono, she has a very unique art style, kind of different than your standard manga. And this is a nice release because it's kind of got this, the ink is more of a light brown instead of a kind of darker color. And then also Ono she writes a lot of her stories are not based in Japan. They're kind of Italy, or, you know, a lot of them are Italian stories, kind of set in Italy, or also some sort of European country. But this is kind of an older short story collection of hers, Tesoro. It was fine. There's nothing, you know, too groundbreaking about it, but it's just a solid short story collection. Next up, I read through La Quinta Camera, The Fifth Room. This is another one where it takes place in Italy, in an apartment complex where all these random roommates live together in this apartment complex and kind of become found family. That's a pretty common theme in Ono's work, is found family and a bunch of people that aren't related who become friends and end up becoming closer than that. So this is another one. We got the nice kind of brown ink to it. Like I said, very unique art styles. Got the French flaps here. This one was really enjoyable. I really enjoyed this. This is like a one-shot, not a short story collection. So that's La Quinta Camera. Okay, so next up I read through, this is one of the Ono works that I've actually read before. This is Restaurante Paradiso, and this one I had actually read a very long time ago, back when this was originally released by Viz. So probably 10 or so years ago, back when I read a little bit of manga, back when I was reading American comics. And this was originally a one-shot, and so this follows this woman here who her mother had abandoned her when she was a child, and she finds out, now that she's an adult, she finds out that she's managing this Italian restaurant in Italy. And so she goes to find her, and she ends up working at the restaurant, and the restaurant has, all of its staff are these older, kind of handsome older gentlemen that all the ladies come to this restaurant to kind of look at and have all fallen in love with. So it's basically, like I said, another found family story about this girl or this young woman coming to try to find her mother, and she ends up becoming part of this family at this restaurant. So originally there was just this one shot, and then after that she released a 3-volume series called Gente, the People of Restaurante Paradiso, and this is a prequel which kind of gives you a backstory about all the different people that worked in the restaurant. So this one I had not read before. And this one was really good. It does, my negative about this series is that it does start introducing quite a lot of characters. So it's, you know, there already was a lot of people working at the restaurant. And so by the end of this, this series, they've added more characters. And so it does kind of, sometimes it gets kind of hard to follow, especially when they're all handsome looking old men is a lot of the characters in the story. So it's kind of, sometimes it can be kind of hard to remember which old man it is. And then by the third volume, you also get some storytelling where it starts involving the main girl from Restaurante Paradiso, who so we start getting some stuff that goes past that storyline, some kind of epilogue stuff for that. So just a really good series. I really enjoyed this one. I like the characters. I like the lead. It's kind of got some little, it's kind of a little short story, yes, because it kind of focuses, each kind of chapter kind of will focus on a different character from the restaurant and their guests. So just a really fun slice of life series about a restaurant. Okay, so next up we have another one that I had previously read. And this again was one that I had read 10 plus years ago, back when it very first was released by Viz. And I was only reading American comics really at that time, and that is Not Simple. I really loved this back then when it first came out. I remember thinking this was fantastic. And on this reread, I feel exactly the same. This is definitely what I think is kind of Ono's masterwork as far as her releases. This is just a really great all-in-one one-shot. It follows this lead kid here who had a really messed up family life, and he's kind of traveling around the world trying to reunite with his beloved sister who had promised that they were gonna get back together someday. And so that's kind of his dream. He's homeless and he's trying to find a way to get back to his sister. So very depressing story. There is a lot of hopefulness to it, but yeah, if you are not looking for something that's going to be sad, this is probably not going to be for you. We kind of follow this lead reporter who is going to make a story about this kid's life, and so we get a little bit of his backstory too. It's kind of told, you know, you start off and it's kind of the end of the story, and then it kind of goes back and tells you a little bit more about what happened. I'm being a little vague because I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, this was a fantastic all-in-one. I gave this 5 stars on Goodreads. Just a really great story, held up. I remembered a very small amount. When it's been more than 10 years, I can't really remember too much of what happened. So this was almost like a fresh read to me. But yeah, really great. Definitely check this one out. And my last read this month was I read through all 8 volumes of Natsumi Ono's House of 5 Leaves. This story is about a samurai who is not very confident, who is not very aggressive, and so because of that, he gets bullied a lot. He doesn't last very long in jobs because he's not very threatening, so people don't really take him seriously. So that's our lead here, and he's kind of hard on his luck, so he ends up becoming a bodyguard for a gang leader. And so another found family story. This series kind of revolves around him becoming a part of this gang, and this gang becoming basically his family. And so you learn a bit about the different gang members, why they're doing what they're doing, and a little bit more about this town, and then the samurai's background. So really enjoyable series. If you're into found family stuff, this is a really good one, a very good samurai story, and these very nice Viz signature releases. So here's volume 5, volume 6. And so with this, I have read everything by Natsumi Ono that was released in English. I read through ACA 13 Territory Inspection Department. I read through that series maybe a few months ago, and that was probably my least favorite of her works. I think that was the newest one, and that one I didn't enjoy quite as much. It was okay, but that was probably my least favorite. And then I've read her other short story collection, I think Danza. I'd read that not too long ago too. So with these series and everything I read this month, I have read all of Natsumi Ono's English work. She's a creator that I'm really interested in. I really wish that we could get some more stuff from her in English, especially after how much I really enjoyed Not Simple, House of 5 Leaves, and then that Restaurante Paradiso. Just a great creator. Okay, so that was it. That was my reading log for the month of September. For October, I'll be reading a ton of horror, spooky, creepy themed manga, kind of the same thing that I did last October. I wasn't sure if I was gonna have enough books to read to fill up the month, but once I actually started making my list, I had way more than enough books to read through that were kind of horror, spooky themed. So lots of great stuff, lots of stuff that I've been wanting to read that I've been saving for this month. So looking forward to a great month of reading manga. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Please leave a comment if you have any questions about anything that I picked up, any complaints about my thoughts, anything you want to talk about, let me know in the comments. But otherwise, everybody have a great month of October, and I will see you in the next video.